Okay. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's meeting of the full council. Before we begin, can I please take this opportunity to remind members and officers, colleagues, to turn their mobile phones to silent to ensure that when addressing the meeting, they speak clearly into the microphones, ensuring that the red light is on. Moving on to the agenda, item 1, I call on member services to apologies for absence. Member services.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you. Yes, apologies from Councillor John Clark, Councillor Count, Councillor Hay, Councillor Humphrey, Councillor Mrs Laws, Councillor Mockett, Councillor Spalding, Councillor Sutton and Councillor Wicks.
Thank you very much. Move on to agenda item 2. The minutes of the annual meeting of the 11th of July 2022 are shown on pages 3 to 16 of the agenda pack. I'd like to move to the approval of those minutes. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Booth?
Yes, Chairman. Although I would like to point out on page 14 where it said that I left the meeting at 5:40, I did explain it was to attend Wisbech St Mary Parish Council meeting that was later that evening, and that was also why Councillor Bly wasn't present.
Thank you very much. That will be duly added to the minutes. With that alteration, do I have a seconder? Councillor Bowden. Thank you. Thank you. Any other member wish to comment on the minutes? If not, they will be duly approved and I will sign them. Thank you very much for that. Agenda item 3, information on pages 17 and 18 of the agenda pack to show the civil list of engagements attended both by myself and the Vice Chairman since I was preceding Council. Agenda item 4, to receive announcements from the Chairman of the Council and from the Head of Paid Services. Before we proceed with the substantive business of the meeting, I would like to take this opportunity today to reflect on the momentous national events over the past few weeks, following the sad passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II on the 8th of September, and the proclamation of His Majesty King Charles' accession to the throne on the 10th of September. On Sunday, the 11th of September, I had the honour of reading the local proclamation for the new King, and on Friday, the 16th of September, I attended a community Thanksgiving service at St Peter's Church in March to commemorate the life and legacy of Her Majesty the Queen. From the hundreds of mourners at the service and the millions of people around the world whose lives were touched by her loss, we are felt and saddened by all. For 70 incredible years, she reigned with great warmth and dignity and humility to the unrivaled service and devotion to our great nation and the wider Commonwealth through her decades of unprecedented change and simply remarkable. We will miss the great lady. And I please invite you then to stand for 1 minute silence. Thank you. I know that our new sovereign, King Charles III, will continue to serve this country in the same absolute dedication and unfaltering duty he did with our beloved Queen. God save the King. I'd also like to take this opportunity to pay respects and tributes to a former Whittlesea councillor and district councillor who recently passed away. Ralph was a much loved, admiring character who gave over 5 decades of work in public service. Having first been elected to a council in 1971, he was elected to Fenton District Council in 2003, as well as being chairman in 2009 to 2011. He was a member of various committees over the past years, including Cabinet, Planning, Corporate Governance, Overview and Scrutiny, and Licensing. Before his retirement, he was a fellow councillor of the ward of Bennett Coates East with myself. I was always grateful for his support, guidance, and much valued friendship and wise counselling. Ralph was always determined to try his best to make Whittlesea and the rest of Fenton a better place for everyone. Getting behind numerous projects over the years, he will perhaps be most remembered for his tireless campaigning, and I have to say I can vouch for this one, for the long-awaited Kingsdyke Crossing, which is the scheme built in Whittlesea. As such a role, this £32 million Kingsdyke Causeway was aptly renamed the Ralph Butcher Causeway in his honour. And I was delighted to present him with a certificate here on behalf of the council back in September last year to recognise the significant and instrumental role he played in securing and delivering the scheme. I will remember Ralph as a tenacious, hard-working and one-of-a-kind councillor who will be missed by all. And I please therefore invite you to join us for a further minute's silence in recognition of his service. Thank you very much. We'll continue. As there are no separate announcements from the Chief Executive, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 5. Agenda item 5 is to read declarations of interest under the local code of conduct and any interest under the code of conduct on planning matters in respect of any item to be discussed in the meeting. Are there any such declarations? Please raise your hand. No hands raised. Thank you very much. Go on to agenda item 6 to receive questions and provide answers to the councillors in relationship to matters which, in the opinion of the chairman, accord with provisions under 8.4 and 8.6 of the agenda. There are no written questions submitted in accordance with rule 8.6, so therefore it proceeds straight away to questions under 8.4. Councillor Cornwall, you now have the right to ask questions of the leader within the allotted time of 20 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. As usual, I will not require 20 minutes. Well, for the questions anyway. Right, Chairman. To start with, given the unprecedented national power and energy expected price increase and possible shortages, could you A, give us the anticipated effect on the council's budgets for this and the coming years, and B, give us a summary of the council's preparedness in dealing with the many community issues arising from the anticipated high levels of fuel poverty and the many risks associated with that poverty, including the overall well-being of everyone in Fenton.
Chair, do you want us to rise when we're speaking or to sit?
No, the rule is now rise.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Councillor Cornwall, for your question. The first part of your question, I can't possibly answer. And that question was, what will the effects of fuel price changes be on the council's budget, both for this current year and for future years? The reason for that is twofold. The first is that we have yet fully to understand the implications of the government's additional money which will be made available to businesses, including to some elements of local government, in respect of reducing costs of fuel for, in our case, for local government functions. And until we have a better understanding of that, we won't properly be able to evaluate what the effect is likely to be. The second issue is we have no idea at all about what fuel prices are likely to be in 6, 12, 18, 24, 36 months' time. And that also makes it impossible for us to make a prediction, a realistic prediction, as to the costs of fuel which will be associated with our budgets. We can look, of course, at the futures markets and try to gain from them. Yes, you laugh, Councillor Cornwall, and well may you laugh. You can do that to try and get what the best guess is that the people with money are making as to how things are going to change in the future. But as we are all aware, we are at the prisoner of circumstances and how things change in the world as a whole. And I'm in no stronger position than anyone else in this room to predict, for example, what will be happening with regards to Russia and Ukraine over the course of the next few years, months, or even days. So the simple answer is I can't give you a number. In practice, what we will need to do is to be prudent and cautious. So when we are coming up towards the budget time, we will, on the advice of officers, be making an estimate based on the information we have at that time as to what the likely effects may be on our direct and indirect costs. And until that time, we'll be in no position to say anything. When we do make that estimate, the one thing I know is that it will be wrong. I don't know if it'll be too high or it'll be too low, but it won't be exactly right, but it will be the best estimate which officers can make at that time with the information given on with a small c, conservative basis. So far as the effect on our residents and our businesses are concerned around Fenland, again, a lot of that is uncertain. A lot of support is being given so far as fuel costs for residential use is concerned, and significantly greater support is being given for those with the greatest need. However, I personally doubt that this will mean that there will not be an increase in the number of individuals who face difficulties. To a significant extent, responsibility for that will lie with the county council rather than the district council. But our housing section will undoubtedly be, in my opinion, be receiving a greater number of inquiries, both in terms of the living conditions that individuals have, but also the potential for additional homelessness. That trend, as far as homelessness is concerned, is mentioned within the reports that we have in front of us today in the portfolio holder briefings. Officers are very well aware of this as being a danger. Obviously, if it's necessary for us to do so, we will look at our staffing so far as that is concerned. But at this time, it's very difficult to predict the level of additional demand that there is going to be. Now, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to give you a specific numerical answer to your question, but if I did, again, I can promise you it would be wrong. Even if it were my best guess, it would be wrong. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, I do understand the difficulty, but surely some kind of risk assessments are underway within the council to try and at least prepare for situations as they arrive. We are in dire conditions or approaching dire conditions, it appears, and that's we, the community, not necessarily Fenland District Council, but every household in Finland is going to go through a very difficult period, and that is bound to reflect somewhere along the line on the services that we deliver, like housing and homelessness and so on. In fact, that actually brings me to a question that I did notice in the report, the extra demands that there's been on homelessness. And it seems to me that because we, in fact, have less house building going on than we would really want and so on, we're still having to face demands from schemes like the Ukrainian schemes, things from government on immigrant housing and all the rest of it. These things are, to me, look as if they're throwing things completely out of balance. Is that correct? You know, is our homeless service being affected by other people's schemes in as much as the marketplace is reducing the whole time that we can actually access for homeless people? And if fuel poverty is going to be one of those elements that actually leads to increased homelessness, you know, how prepared are we? This is the sort of thing I'm interested in, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. My apologies. Councillor Cornwall managed to get a second question in at the end, which meant I had to write it down, otherwise I'd forget. Yes, I agree with almost everything that Councillor Cornwall said. As he pointed out, the report before us today, the portfolio holders report, does give information about the trend we've already been experiencing this year towards a greater demand on our homelessness service. But the report also states what has been done in order to increase capacity on that and what is going to be done to increase capacity on that. But I'm not suggesting for 1 second that that means the situation is going to be easy. It's not. But the details are given in the paper, and I'm not going to try and recite them from memory because I get the numbers wrong. But it has all been given to all members of the council. So far as the impact that the Ukrainian refugee scheme and the decamping of immigrants from hotel scheme may have upon our homelessness situation, I am not aware, given the nature of the schemes, of any impact that the Ukrainian schemes will have on our homelessness situation. However, and it's yet to be confirmed because it still hasn't started yet, but the draft proposals that we have seen to do with immigration and the removal of individuals awaiting asylum determination from hotels into local communities, the impact on that, if it were to take place as has been suggested, would be a significant tightening of the private sector rental market, to the extent that, in my opinion, as things currently stand, we would have exactly the impact that Councillor Cornwall you suggested, Chairman, and that we would find ourselves with a situation where individuals who otherwise would have been able to find accommodation within Finland are unable to do so. Now, we have made representations, as you know, concerning this particular scheme, and officers have also made representations. I don't want to go into too much detail because we're not the only ones making representations. Various other districts within Cambridgeshire have been making representations as well. Two of them in particular suggesting that we're the place to take their allocation rather than taking it themselves. So there's a lot which is going on behind the scenes as far as that is concerned. But the impact that this can have upon individuals who currently reside in Finland who would find that they're unable to continue to do so will be severe as things currently stand. We are making representations as much as we can. We will ultimately, however, have to comply with the requirements of the scheme which is set forward. In fact, I say we have to comply with it. It won't be our responsibility for doing it. It will be it's subcontracted out to a third party, and it's that third party which will be entering into the private rented sector within Finland, and will be utilising potentially a significant proportion of that sector's availability over the course of the next 18 months to 2 years, which is the timescale by which over which we're talking about this whole scheme being rolled in. And as for the effect, well, I've already said about the effect that fuel poverty may have and other matters to do with austerity. It is fortunate but technical that it now appears to be unlikely that we will enter into a recession this year. We may enter into a recession next year, who knows? But that's a technical matter rather than being a full matter. The effect that some elements of the changes which are taking place will have upon some of the poorest in our community will be significant. There are many who are protected in many ways by a number of different schemes which are in place, but there are gaps between the schemes, and some people inevitably will fall between the boards and will require our assistance. So, Councillor Cornwall, you're entirely correct about that. So we're facing pressure now, not just from that, but also potentially from this reduction in available private sector housing. A very serious situation, not one which we can do very much about other than say this effect that there will be upon our situation in Finland is such that it would be unreasonable for us to take more than our fair share of those individuals who are being decamped from hotels or seeking asylum at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'll stop there. I think most of the rest of questions and that relate to the portfolio holders' reports, and I'm sure colleagues will have a number of questions on those.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cornwall. That's agenda item 6 finished. We're going to move on to agenda item 7 to receive reports from and ask questions of cabinet members with portfolio holder responsibilities in accordance with procedural rules 8.1 and 8.2. In accordance with procedures 8.1, members will find that the portfolio holder briefing reports on page 19 to 64 in the agenda pack. Procedure 8.2 permits questions of cabinet members about any matter which falls within their portfolio holder responsibility. Members are reminded that the total time for this is 1 hour. Do I have anyone wishing to ask questions? Please raise your hand. Councillor Blythe.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got 3 questions to 3 different portfolio holders. Is it okay that I move to each one?
Yes.
Thank you. My first question is to Councillor Bowden in his portfolio for finance. There is a small fund from Fenner District Council for community grants of £500. I believe that was being run out. Is it exhausted? And would you be able to tell me whether there's any money left in that pot? I appreciate that you probably won't know that answer off the top of your head. If you could let me know.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the fund still exists. It is almost run out. And what I'm trying to do is to eke it out to those wards which have not yet received any money from it. So if there are any cases which come to my attention from a ward which hasn't received any money from that pot in the last 3 years, then I'm still open for consideration. I'm particularly open to consideration for any schemes which are looking for less than £500 rather than 500 or £499, as so often appears to be the case.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden. As you can appreciate, our ward has benefited from that and we're very grateful. My second question is for Councillor Hoy, for your portfolio for housing. I'm a bit concerned listening to the problems with homelessness, the fact that Clarion still has many properties that are empty. I just wondered in your portfolio whether you could help push that forward and make sure that you ensure that they refill their properties, especially in Thorney Toll. I believe there's about 7 houses, it's a very small area, and 7 of them are empty. It has increased to antisocial behaviour, because if you've got a small area that have got many empty properties that are dark, you do tend to have an increase in crime. I just wonder if you could help me with that.
Yeah, thank you for the advance notice of this. I have had, obviously it was just before the meeting, but I have had a chance to ask about the Thorney Toll issue. I'm not sure how much that I can mention publicly, but I will ask officers to get you an update on that. I believe there is sort of a bit more of plans for a scheme there. In regards to Clarion, they are coming to ONS in January, so hopefully we can ask them for an update to the scheme then, amongst other schemes. With regards to the empty homes, obviously that was mentioned at the last meeting of council. The actual, we did have the numbers across all providers, not just Clarion. The numbers was roughly around 40 out of the 400 empty homes there were across the district. So it wasn't a giant number, but at the same time, obviously, it is still a number. And obviously, a large proportion of that was Roman Court in Leverington, as we're all aware, that's prepared to be demolished. So it'll be interesting to see how the numbers come down. But you're right, we do need to keep an eye on it because they need to be keeping those houses filled.
Thank you. Your support is appreciated. My final question is for Councillor Murphy. It's not so much a question, more of a thank you for mentioning the Guy Hearn play equipment in your portfolio report, the fact that it's having a complete overhaul. I want to thank the officers that have been involved in that process. I would just like to also put on record my thanks to Galliford Try, Highways England and CR Civil Engineering, because without them, the whole project would have fell flat on its face to begin with, because they removed all the existing play equipment. So I just wanted to add that to it, and please pass on my thank you for the work that they did for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We are doing a lot of these areas up now. We've done 3 just lately in Chatteris. There's Guy Hearn, there's Doddington and all that sort of thing. So we are getting around them all. There are a lot to go.
Councillor Patrick. Can you turn your microphone on, please?
Is the leader of the council aware that in Cambridgeshire, Wisbech is considered the most dangerous middle-sized town to live in, and that its crime average is much higher than both the local and national average? Can I ask what actions the leader is able to take, if any, to try and help reduce crime in Wisbech?
Councillor Bowden.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not so sure about the definition of the most dangerous middle-sized town in Cambridgeshire. That seems to be a quite subjective comment. But really, ultimately, it doesn't matter. And the reason it doesn't matter is because there is too much crime in Wisbech. There is too much antisocial behaviour in Wisbech. And this is something which has been recognised for a significant amount of time. We will have, as is mentioned in the portfolio holder report, additional resource coming in specifically in Medworth Ward, which covers most of the town centre, as you'll be aware, to enable more action to be taken concerning antisocial behaviour. Ultimately, as we know, responsibility for maintaining order lies with the police. And we have regular discussions with the police, both at individual level and at corporate level, concerning the activities which they do and don't do. And it's completely correct for us to continue to challenge both them and the Police and Crime Commissioner about the situation which exists within March. Within Wisbech. To the extent that there are statistics, it really is quite startling when you compare March, Whittlesea and Chatteris with Wisbech. And when you look at those statistics which are made available to us, it is abundantly clear that there is a significantly disproportionate problem which exists in Wisbech. This is not new, and Chairman, Councillor Patrick will be aware of a number of different initiatives which have been taken over a significant amount of time in Wisbech to try to dampen down the problem which exists. Ultimately, it does depend upon more policing more than anything else. And to the extent that we can manage to do things, we are, as I say, directing some additional support that we've managed to achieve into the town centre. But I don't want for one second to underplay the seriousness of the situation and the way in which it affects many ordinary people within the area. However, I don't want the impression to be given from this council that Wisbech is some sort of lawless place which no one should go to, where people shouldn't be living, where everyone is fearful all of the time. It is not that bad. We're not talking about a situation where Wisbech is a place which is impossible to live. There are many places around the country which are a great deal worse than Wisbech. But that's not to say that we mustn't take action, because we must, to try and reduce the amount of illegal activity and antisocial behaviour which there is within the town. So there's a balance to be drawn there. You're quite right, Councillor Patrick, if I may say so, Chairman, quite right to draw attention to the fact that the situation of Wisbech is worse, significantly worse than, in fact, worse than the 3 other towns in our area combined. But I don't want to overplay that either. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Hewlett.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got three questions for three different portfolio holders on page 44, 50, page 44, 52 and 53. Firstly, page 44, the March to Wisbech Railway report was due in the summer of 22. Has that been seen? Have they reported on that? And generally, is the railway still a runner, or is it being kicked into the long grass?
Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, Councillor Hewlett. Firstly, yes, it is not been kicked into the short grass. I have to say, though, that the Transport Committee at the CPCA has not had a meeting for some time, and they keep being cancelled. However, there is one on the 16th of this month, where the Wisbech Rail is on the agenda. There's supposed to be a paper coming there. I haven't seen it yet. It was supposed to have been at the last meeting, but that meeting didn't take place. But it is still there. It's still ongoing. There is still work being done by the CPCA. I will be able to report further on that after the 16th, when hopefully the meeting will take place. And then I can report back to council, and I could also send you an email regarding, what happened at that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd be grateful for that. My second question is to, I think, Councillor Benny. A proposal for a commercial park in March. Can you give us some information on that? Or is that still sub judice or whatever it is?
I can, Councillor, and I'd also like to thank you for giving me advance notice of this, so I could just check back. It's just one line in a report. There is a local businessman that is looking to do some development work in March. I put him in contact with the economic growth team and senior officers at Fenland District Council some time ago. But at the moment, there is quite a bit of sensitivity around commercialism. There are negotiations going on between that businessman and the landowner. And I think, whilst I would be very, very happy if this comes to fruition, more than happy to tell the Chamber of the good things that this will bring. It is in a fairly infancy, it's in its infancy at the moment, and for commercial sensitivity reasons, I can't give you details as to where that would be or what parties would be involved in that at this time. But when that information becomes available, and also if this proposal gets off the ground, because some things do and some things don't, if this does, I'll be more than happy to share this with the whole Chamber. It'll be a very good thing for March, but it is, like I say, in its infancy. And at the moment, through confidentiality, I don't feel I could say much more than that. But I will keep this Chamber fully aware of things as they progress.
Thank you for that. And we do need all that we can in the way of business and improvements in the economy in Finland, and I'm sure you're working on that going forward. My last question, I spoke to Councillor Seaton about this to start with, but I see he came across to Councillor French, and I don't know whether you passed that information on or not, but if not, I apologise. March area transport strategy. Are the dates reference to procurement to complete in December and start the site date around March 2023 still on schedule? The schedule, given the importance of the transport strategy for March. Thank you very much. Give me some confirmation on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hewlett. I can answer some of it. Funds have been drawn down from the combined authority from County Council. The marketplace will be started in January, February with the agreement of the market traders, which is suitable for them, and that is approximately 6 to 8 weeks. With regard to the MATS work, prior to the MATS work actually beginning, and that won't start until possibly summer of next year, the gas company, as you're well aware, we had many gas leaks and explosions recently, and all partners have been informed before anything can be done with regards to the MATS work, that all Anglo Water, gas companies and broadband suppliers have to get that work done. And I believe The gas, they will be starting on the 31st of March next year. Because obviously with the amount of, as I said, the amount of gas leaks, it had actually affected quite a lot of streets. So the gas company are going to spend a considerable amount of money renewing lots of gas pipes across the whole of the town.
Well, anybody that's been in March in the last 18 months or even more than that has seen all the roads up with various gas companies and other utilities there. And I hope that you're bringing as much pressure as you can to get this sorted, because the town centre has been diabolical. All this gas job, then when will this put the work on the MAT strategy back? How far will it delay that? And when the funding, will that delay the funding or anything like that?
No, it won't delay it, but we have to have the gas works done, and the MAT's team at County Council and Office of the FDC on March High Street have been working with these utility companies. As I say, it will start hopefully on the 31st of March, and that will take probably 2 to 3 months, but it's not going to delay or affect the funding through the combined authority. We're still on track on that.
Thank you, Chairman. Question for Councillor Hoy for my colleague Councillor Bly's question. I obviously raised the issue about Thorny Toll at the last meeting, and I had a response from Clarion. I think it's 26th of August. What you've sort of indicated in the response is different to what I've received, so I'd be interested to find out what they are proposing. They did ask me to keep that confidential, what was passed on to me, but it sounds like things have moved on even further since I received that letter. And in connection with that, just I think like in the portfolio holders report, it talks about a number of empty properties. I've raised this with you a number of times now about how many properties are going into empty sort of status, and I think this sort of highlights where you do have a turnover of potential properties, because if Councillor Bly is correct, with 7 properties, that's certainly higher than when I first raised this in July, and it shows you the cycle that we can get into. That's why I think this information is important, so that we can keep track of, are we on top of this issue or not? It's all well and good if we're bringing 32 properties back into use, but if say we've got 50 that go out of use, we're actually in a net position worse off.
Yeah, I think that's the point. We do need to keep track on it, and as you see, it is in there. So now we just need to keep an eye on that. And with regards to the Thorny Toll issue, I don't think it's sort of very cloak and dagger. It's just that literally, Councillor Bly spoke to me about 10 minutes before we went into the meeting. I quickly got an update, and I'm telling you what I know that I can say. So I don't think it's anything particularly sort of untoward or anything like that. It's just how events have transpired in the time. So I'm sure you can have the update as well with no problem at all.
I wasn't blaming yourself there. It's just I've obviously had a response from Clarion at the end of August, and the response we've had today indicates that something else might be happening. So from what you've said, I mean, I could show you the letter afterwards if you want, but yeah, they kind of indicated nothing major was going to happen. So it'll be interesting to find out what they are proposing. I've got a further question, Chairman. It's to Councillor Murphy. So it's regarding recycling rates at Old Chestnut that we keep having discussions on. So in the portfolio holders report, we're now reporting, I think it's 27% recycling rate. The question simply is, why do we not use the DEFRA reporting rate, which we have to report every year, and is actually a higher rate? It seems silly that we're reporting a percentage that is actually lower than what we have to report to central government.
Councillor Murphy.
The reason we do that is because it's the easiest way at the moment of doing it for all the councils in recap, and that's how it works out. We had a meeting at recap at Waterbeach last week, and all the councils together are all tied up. They don't know which way to go at the moment because of what's happening with the government, food waste and everything else. The food waste is the big thing, that some collect it, some don't collect it, some just put it in a rubbish bin and that's it. And it's not counted. When it comes in the food waste, hopefully, I say hopefully next year, it could be the year after, because it keeps going out with the government. When it comes into that, everybody will be on the same wavelength and counted the same way. I mean, you've been told all this before, but it hasn't altered since you last asked. And if you ask it again next time, council meeting, it will probably be the same. But we've had a meeting last week with Recoup in Peterborough, and to take it one stage farther than recap of the whole Cambridgeshire, there at this meeting was Morrison's, a person from Morrison's, a high head up of Tesco's as well. They were all there, and they're trying different ways of doing it, but they're only trying it. They haven't got a clue which way to go yet. They're altering things, but altering things for their own way. When this all comes in, they'll all be doing the same. So they'll all be brought in line with one another, but they don't know what they're doing at the moment. Each one of them was so, well, I won't say blasé about it, but they hadn't got a clue which way it's going. And that they were saying it might happen this year, next year, or the year after. It's all up to the government. I'm sorry to say this about the government. It is all up to the government when they get down to it and tell us what they want, and then it'll all go back on even keel again.
Does that conclude your questions, Councillor Booth? Are there any other questions? Councillor Cornwall.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, it's a question, I think, to Councillor Hoy. Sorry, I'm so apologetic. Page 3, it refers to the fines levels for private landlords and so on. I have raised this before, where it says the above fines total 98,723, and we actually have a shortfall of, oh yeah, I've got it somewhere, an awful lot of money. 79,000 was it, or something, that we're still owed. Is there anything you can do to speed up that recovery of that amount of money? I mean, it's significant, Chairman.
Well, technically, that's actually a question probably more for the leader, because when we've levied the fines and chased, we then move it to finance. So not that I'm trying to get away from that, but obviously, yeah, we want to get the money in as fast as possible. I do know there are things that they do try, obviously. I think they can go with the bailiff action and charges. So it's not like I think the money can never come back. But some of the issues, as mentioned in the report, are actually going to be really difficult long term. So one thing we've started doing in the last sort of 6 or 7 months is where we've found properties where tenants are subletting, we've actually started finding them, and which is just right, to be fair, because if they've sublet, you know, a landlord shouldn't have to pay the price for that. The problem is they then kind of do a moonlight flit and move country, and you then are struggling to find the money. So some of it, if I'm honest, I wonder if we will ever see back, but a large chunk of it I think we will see back, and it's just going to take time to move through the process. But I'm happy for you, please nag the 151 officer and the leader to be heavy with chasing the fines.
Councillor French.
Thank you, Councillor Cornwall. Yes, we were absolutely, I'm going to say gobsmacked to find out there was so many errors. And obviously these errors have to be corrected before we can go further down the line. Unfortunately, one of the stumbling blocks we've now got again is the County Council want an additional £150,000 on top of what we've already agreed, which is absolutely ridiculous. But we do have Cambridge Greater Partnership actually prepared, and it's going through combined authority at the moment, to put the funding of £150,000 in. But we do have the Fenland walking, cycling, etc., which was agreed at Cabinet today. and a lot of the lining is actually covered in that. County Council, for some strange reason, and I have been asking for over a year now, to get our lines painted, because it's up to them, it's a statutory duty. But sadly, the Highway Committee and the chairman are dragging their heels. There are so many different issues and mistakes, and we were supposed to submit a license to the government in October. They've now put that off till April next year, which is absolutely appalling. So it's not for the want of trying. I have been banging my head against a brick wall for the last at least 12 months. And having discussed this at the MATS meeting, I mean, something simple like keep clear outside the fire station. I've been asking for nearly 14 months. Finally, the MATS agreed as an urgency, they'll do that very shortly, as with the zebra crossing outside St. Peter's Church, because there's no markings there at all left, and the amount of people that nearly hit on that crossing is appalling. So I have been chasing it, and hopefully we're going to move forward. So yes, the 86% is appalling.
So I just wonder if this council could adopt the same practice where we erroneously produce a service and then charge somebody to put it right. It sounds an incredible business plan now. Chairman, we can at some stage get this as a public, or this information out in public as well.
Councillor French.
With regard to being out in the public, it isn't out in the public through Cambridge County Council Highway and Transport. So it is well out there. So we have another meeting, I believe, it's next month and the month after. So I'll make sure it is brought up again.
Thank you, Councillor Cornwall, Councillor French. But you will note that this is live streamed, so therefore it probably is already in the public domain. Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, a question for Councillor French. In the report, it makes reference to capital street lighting replacement works. It doesn't make any reference to the parish council street lighting that is being undertaken, which is also being delayed by the shortage of personnel at the provider that we use for the district council. And although we've asked for repeated updates, the information is very slow and forthcoming. Can we ensure that service is improved? Because parish councils are trying to get street lighting stock up to a decent standard, and we're not getting a good response. I do wonder if the provider is the right provider for us, if they've got such key person dependencies that if someone's not around, they can't provide that information.
Councillor French.
Thank you, Councillor Booth. Yes, I will speak to officers tomorrow with regard. My understanding that the parish councils and FDC were working well together, and I do know that they have been working with replacements, but I will speak to the officer tomorrow and let you know.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? No? And that concludes item 7. We move on to agenda item 8, the overview and scrutiny annual report, to be found on pages 65 to 76 in the agenda pack. I will now call upon Councillor David Mason, Chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, to present the report. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. This year's annual overview and scrutiny report actually reflects exactly what's on the tin. It actually reflects on the work that's been undertaken by the panel and achieved during the past year, 2021-22, and takes a forward look at the programme of work and the challenges for the overview and scrutiny panel in 2022-23. I think all members have had ample opportunity to study the report, so respectfully, Mr. Chairman, I would propose this report is noted by the Council, with my grateful thanks to all members, officers and member services for their assistance in compiling this particular report.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Do I have a seconder for the report? Councillor Purser. Do you wish to speak now, or do you wish to speak some up afterwards? Okay. The item is now open for debate. Does anyone wish to debate this item? Councillor Mason, would you like to sum up?
I think I'll still say well, rightly. Thank you very much for your faith in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to acknowledgement of the report on page 65 of the agenda pack to acknowledge the broad scope of the work carried out by the Overview and Scrutiny Panel for December or for the years 2021 to 2022. Is that agreed? Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 9. The report to be found on pages 77 to 80 of the agenda pack. I will call upon Councillor Bowden, Leader of the Council, to present the report.
Thank you, Chairman. There are 2 changes to the Constitution which are detailed within this agenda item. The first one is a change which has actually already taken place, and that is the date change on the limit for the new fast track process for enabling businesses to obtain pavement licenses. This change took place during the course of the last few months, and the monitoring officer, using the powers that she has under the Constitution, changed our Constitution to bring it into line with the new regulations. Our Constitution, however, does say that when the monitoring officer does this, that it's necessary to come to full council for ratification, and I'm happy to propose that that change be ratified. Failure to ratify it would mean we were actually in an illegal position. The second item is a change in the timing for motions to be submitted for consideration at full council. Now, under the current arrangements within the standing orders, the date for publication of the council agenda is the same date that any member must notify the chief executive as to their intention to table a motion. And currently, the time by which they are obliged to do this under the Constitution is 5 p.m. Now, clearly, any member can notify the chief executive of their intention to table a motion well before that time, but 5 p.m. is the cutoff point. And the issue with this current arrangement is that whilst the legislation governing the publication of the agenda does not express a particular time by which the agenda must be published, what we try to do within member services is always to aim to publish within ordinary working hours. That is, we'd normally hope to get something onto the internet no later than 6 o'clock, if at all possible. And we consider that that then meets with the statutory member and public expectation that the information will be published by the required date, that is 5 clear working days before the date of the meeting. What this does mean, however, is that if there is no prior knowledge of the motion, and or if there are aspects of it which require some further discussion with the person who has presented it, and or it's necessary to have discussion with the service leads for the relevant subject area, it leaves very limited time for the necessary amendments to take place, if amendments are required, before publication has to take place. Because it is a requirement, a legal requirement, that the wording of the motion must be included in the notice of the meeting. So we can't just say there's a motion and we'll let you know what the wording is later when we publish the agenda for the meeting. We've got to publish the precise wording. The danger is that if someone were to put a motion forward at 5 p.m. and it required amendment because it was wrong, unconstitutional in its current form, but could be amended to be constitutional, there may not be sufficient time to make those changes to allow it to be included in the agenda. So the member would lose the right to put that motion forward at that meeting of the council. So what is being suggested here is a very simple, straightforward fix for that, is to bring forward from 5 p.m. to 12 noon the deadline by which a member needs to give notification of a motion, so that if necessary, during the following 5 or 6 hours, the necessary considerations could take place with the member concerned, with democratic services, with the monitoring officer, or with the service lead, who may be needed to make sure that the motion is fully in order. So those that is for us to approve, and those are the 2 proposed changes to the Constitution in this agenda item. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Connor. you wish to speak now, councillor Connor, or do you wish to reserve the right to speak afterwards? Thank you very much. The item is now open for debate. Councillor Cornwall.
Chairman, I think there actually is another option. And that's to change the date of the council meeting.
Councillor Cornwall, that is not what is before us today.
Chairman, no. If it is moved to a day other than Monday, then the question doesn't arise, does it? Because people are still there.
Councillor Bowden.
Thank you, Chairman. The day of the meeting and the day of the submission of the motion is actually irrelevant, because regardless of which day of the week it is, and it won't be a Saturday or Sunday because they don't count, regardless of which day of the week it is, the same position applies, and that is there is this 5 p.m. deadline to give in the motions, and member services need to get the agenda published at the very latest by 6 o'clock that evening. So it doesn't matter whether you're talking about Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, or Fridays, the same situation arises. Thank you, Chairman.
Is there anyone else wish to question or debate it? No. We will take two votes on this because there are two items on the agenda for the motions. So on the first item, Councillor Bowden, you wish to state what the first item is in full?
Thank you, Chairman. The first item is for us to endorse, to ratify, I think the correct word is, to ratify the amendment to the Constitution changing the date for the new fast track process for enabling businesses to obtain pavement licenses.
Would you like to state the full of the ratification?
Thank you, Chairman. The second item is an amendment to paragraph 10.1 of the procedure rules, the standing orders, to change the time by which a motion needs to be submitted from 5 p.m. to 12 noon.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden. Seconder is Councillor Connor, because he's all those who wish to vote and accept. You have a question, Councillor Booth?
Well, point of order, I think what Councillor Bowden meant to say there was change it from 12 noon to 5 p.m, not the other way around.
No, it's change it from 5 p.m. to 12 o'clock. Yeah. Right. It's 5 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock at the moment. Change it to 12, which gives you 5 hours. Yeah, thank you. Right, all those in favour of ratifying this, please show. Thank you. That is I'm quite happy to keep my counsel. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a policy that we've been working on for some time within the economic growth team. It does seem that with every inquiry that we get come in, one of the biggest problems is a lack of space and available units within the Fenland area, whether that be first, second or third size units. And to try and stimulate some of or maybe some building of these units, we are looking to put a discretionary grant scheme in place. It's really to bring about speculative building. There are people out there that have got land, people who want to invest in pensions, to build commercial property to let them out as industrial units. But with that, there's an element of risk. And that risk is that from the day you complete them, and you put the final roof tile on, you have to pay council tax or uniform business rate on those properties until they're let. And that puts a certain element of risk towards that investor. So what this policy actually does, or we hope it will do, is to take away some of that risk by saying that you don't have to pay rates on your business rates on that building. If you do a speculative build in terms of industrial units, you don't have to pay the rates for a 12-month period or until your first tenant moves in. So that hopefully will stimulate some kind of investment that people will bring forward land. It can either be brownfield or greenfield land. Can't be work that's already started. The full details of it are in the report. But this is to hopefully bring forward landowners or developers to bring forward development of commercial units to help alleviate some of the problem we have in Finland with this shortage of industrial space and commercial space. So that is the purpose of this proposal, and it's to take away some of the risk and hopefully stimulate some interest within the local business community or landowners to bring forward development of industrial units within Finland.
Thank you, Councillor Benny. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bowden. The item is now open for debate. Councillor Corn? Yeah.
Yeah, Chairman, I think I can see where this is coming from. And I think I understand what the intention is and so on. But are we not at risk here of finishing up with a situation like we had in Chatras a while ago, where we had buildings built and developed and we had no income from? And one of our saving graces was that we were able to get business rates out of those properties while certain arguments were ongoing between developers and what they call lessors and so on. I'm thinking of the Tesco position that we had in Chatras way back. Is that not precisely the risk that we run with? I don't know. I'm asking the question.
Councillor Benny.
Yeah, I see where you're going with that, Councillor Cornwall, but that risk is not ours. That risk is not ours. This would be to the commercial markets to take that risk, whether they build or not. And if they do, at the moment we're getting nothing in terms of council rate on green or brownfield land. But after this 12-month period, which is only a maximum of 12 months, we then get the commercial rates back on that. We're just taking away that a cushion between the build and the market, and we're getting nothing for it at the moment. But in 12 months' time, we do get that rate at the end of that 12-month period, or once that building is let to its first tenant from there on.
Chairman, I understand the 12-month is in effect a fail-safe, so it stops some of these things from happening. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bowden, you wish.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this proposal is time limited, but it's time limited in two ways. The first is that the grant will only be available for a maximum of 12 months or until the first occupation takes place. But secondly, it's also a pilot which will only run for 12 months. And the reason for that is not because we don't think it is a good thing to continue for the future, but we want to encourage people to take this up because it may not continue into the future. So it's meant to be a carrot to try to encourage more developers to build speculative commercial and industrial build, primarily, but not exclusively, for small and micro businesses. And it's in that area that we've got a massive shortage of capacity, so far as Finland is concerned. And we've had a number of businesses who've ended up going out of Finland because there just isn't the capacity within Finland to provide them with the accommodation that they require in order to continue working in or be started up in Finland itself. So that's the reason for doing this. This provides the economic growth team with an extra tool to try to encourage the necessary development that takes place. If you compare the amount of industrial and commercial space which has been developed in Finland, as opposed to the amount which has been developed in Peterborough, next door, the ratio is astonishing. And I'm not for 1 second suggesting we're going even to approach what the figures are in Peterborough, but we've got to do better than we've done in the past. And this is one of a number of potential ways of doing it. Others will follow.
Councillor Hewlett.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I welcome this. If anything is done to incentivise growth, business, attract business here, I welcome. And I think it's better to get 5% of something rather than 5% of nothing. And if this takes us that way, well done.
Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chair. Just for public record, I'm an employee of the company that Councillor Cornwall mentioned, but this is a forward-looking policy, so I don't think I have to declare an interest, having only just recently joined them. But just following up on the point I think Councillor Bowden said about the time limiting. I mean, obviously, there isn't really a time limit if you're looking at the occupation by the first tenant, because in theory that could go on for some time, but it does have the deadline of 31st March 2024, so I'm assuming it'd be 2025 in theory. Is that correct or not?
I think we'll require Councillor Benny to give the definitive answer on that.
Yeah, it would be from when the building is complete. That would be 12 months from when the building is complete until you would have 12 months from that date of completion or the first tenant moving in.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Councillor?
Yeah, it's just the way it's worded is it's an all. So you could have 12 months or you could have longer, I guess. But as long as that's clear and that's what people are intending. The other, and I'd like to say I welcome this as well. I've got two other observations. It's a pity we don't have better information in the financial implications, because it says there'll be no financial implication. But surely if this policy works, which we're hoping it will work, it will actually generate more revenue for district council. What would have been good was to get some indication of numbers of inquiries we get at the moment, to give us an idea, even if it's ballpark figures. I know it's speculation, but at least it reinforces the reasons for it. Yeah. So that's the first point. The second point is about local plan. So the local plan at the moment doesn't have necessarily very designated sites. It's not the local plan we're looking to introduce, which is obviously out for consultation at the moment. And I wonder if we ought to just make it clear about the difference between the two local plans, because obviously in the new local plan, there will be allocated sites. In the current local plan, it's very down to interpretation with the different policies, which is the issue that we have at the moment with development with the current local plan.
Yeah, thank you. To your second point, to your first point, yes, I see we'll have a positive effect after 12 months to bring this forward, but it's risk to the council. And at the moment, this is a negative cost to us because we're not giving anything away that we've had. If you haven't had it, you can't lose it. In terms of the local plan, yes, there are different areas within the local plan designated for industrial use, but there is also the windfall policy where anybody could bring forward a proposal for a windfall, and that would then be down to the planning committee to decide whether that was deemed policy compliant and whether they felt that that would be. So that would, again, be down to Pen and District Council to set the environment.
Councillor Booth.
Chairman, Councillor Benny wasn't here when the existing local plan was adopted many years ago, and when it was confirmed, we have no windfall policy in the current local plan. So just to put that on record and just make you aware, that was a lengthy debate, and that was the outcome of that debate. But yeah, I guess what I'm saying is in the new local emerging plan, we will have designated sites. The problem with the existing local plan is it's more policy led and it's more down to individual interpretation. That's the issue I'm saying that we will have with.
Thank you for that, Councillor Booth.
Thank you. Councillor Bowden, Councillor Mason. Can you use a microphone, please, Councillor Mason?
Is there anything that prevents a tenant moving in for 12 months on favourable terms and then moving out to another property again on favourable terms? Or is there anything in the policy to prevent that?
Sorry, Councillor, can you?
I'll repeat it if you like.
Yes, please.
I'll repeat it. A tenant moves in on favourable terms for 12 months and then moves out of that property into another property, again on favourable terms. Is there anything to prevent that in the policy that we're putting forward?
Councillor Benny? Councillor Bowden, you wish to try?
I mean, if a tenant moved in, it's the landlord that gets the benefit rather than the tenant. And if he builds a second industrial unit, that policy would still apply to the second development. But that means we would then have 2 units instead of 1 or none.
We're not actually stimulating income for the council in that respect. If someone is going to bounce along, they just take advantage of the system and we're nowhere.
Yeah, okay. I'll let Councillor Bowden answer that one.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, this is much more an NMDR and finance question. The question here is, what we are proposing is a postponement of the start of a liability for payment of NMDR. Once that postponement is finished, which will be either at the cessation of 12 months or when the first tenant moves in, then and from then onwards, the property will be subject to NMDR. The tenant, him or herself, will be almost irrelevant in this because it's not the tenants who are going to be benefiting from the policy we've got here. It will be the developers of the property who would otherwise have a liability as soon as the property normally has a roof on when it's completed up to a certain stage. So it's nothing to do with the tenants at all in terms of the advantage. But as far as the benefit that we're giving, it is to do with the property itself, and it's a one-off benefit for that property. And if the tenant who does move in after however many months then moves out, there is still the liability for NMDR. It just would pass to the owner of the property. So there is no additional potential liability to us.
Councillor Connor.
Yeah, this is an excellent report. What is there not to like about it? It's going to hopefully bring more prosperity to Fenland. We're going to, it's going to bring, hopefully there'll be more money into it. I know, I've been speaking to people up there asking me for help for factories, and there is no factories. We have to send them out to, well, we don't send them anywhere particularly, but we have to go to Huntingdon, St Neots or Peterborough, as been mentioned before. Surely this is the most sensible solution that we could have in Fenland. I really do urge this council to vote this one through without delay. So Councillor Benny can get on with the job that he's been elected to do to make Fenland a more prosperous place. Thank you.
I don't know whether Councillor Bowden wishes to sum up as you've already spoken. Councillor Benny, do you wish to sum up any further?
No, Chair.
Right. Thank you for members. The recommendation is on page 81 of the agenda of the pack, and is for the full council to adopt the proposed discretionary business rate policy for commercial development for the initial period of 12 months. Is this agreed? Anyone against? No, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move on to agenda item 11, confidential minutes. We are asked to approve the minutes on page 85, 86 of the confidential agenda pack as the correct record of part of the meeting which took place in exempt session on the 11th of July 2022. I'm not proposing at this stage that we enter into exempt session for this item unless there is substantive comments to be made. Can I therefore please seek to ask if any member who does not agree with the minutes associated with this agenda item? I see no objections to the proposal to approve the exempt minutes as a correct record, and I will take them as agreed. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this afternoon's meeting. I would like to thank you for your attendance, and may I remind you that the next ordinary meeting of the council will take place on Monday, the 12th of December.